look who it is on the Vaqueros hotline. Longhorns playing the Kansas Jayhawks on Saturday, 2:30 showdown game in the Big 12. And who better to talk to than a Kansas graduate who currently hosts the Big 12 radio program on Sirius XM College, channel 375. A great friend, great former colleague of ours, our buddy Ari Temkin. Ari, how are you, man?
I'm great, E. What's going on, man? Congrats to Rod and his wife on the birth of their child. That's amazing.
It is amazing. Now, how are your children? You and Margo, how old are yours now? You got two boys.
Yeah, two boys. One of them is 8. My oldest is 8, and he's in second grade. And my youngest is 4, almost 5. So, yeah, they're it's crazy.
It is.
Trucking along. I remember when you had 8 and 5-year-olds.
Yeah, now I've got 25 and 22-year-olds and 21-year-olds. That's just the way that goes. But, you know, I was telling our producer, Ty, who's having a rough week. He's kind of like the Bears, the Chicago Bears or something these days. He lost his wallet yesterday, had to go let him in. He lost his car keys today, so he had to steal his roommate's car. I'm like, and I know this because I knew you when you were single too, Ari. He needs a girl. He needs to find his Margo, right? He needs some stability in his life. You know how that works. You go from being a mess to all of a sudden, everything lines up for you.
Yeah, it's amazing how much more organized you can be and less forgetful.
Yeah.
When you aren't a single 20-something-year-old. But yeah, I mean that sounds exactly like the Chicago Bears. I guess the only thing worse would be like his house burning down. Yeah, that's probably more Chicago Bears. That's
exactly right. Ari, let's talk some football now. This Big 12, I want you to start with Kansas because you're a graduate. You follow that program closer than most, and I'll let you brag on the job Lance Leipold has done because whether they can beat Texas or not on Saturday, we'll talk about. But, man, just to have him here, top 25 in both offense and defense, he's done one hell of a job, maybe the best job of any coach in the Power Four.
Yeah, I mean, I picked the wrong weekend to be going to New York because I would be in the building for the biggest Jayhawk football game in 2 decades. You know, you could argue that this is even bigger than the Orange Bowl because it's just the history of Texas and Kansas in the Big 12 and this final meeting here in Austin and especially where both teams are situated. First time ever that these two teams are ranked in a game playing against each other, which is no surprise. So in Kansas has spent a ton of time in the top 25 usually. But, I mean, look, the big question about KU heading into the season was their defense. We know what Bijan and the Texas ground game did against them last year to the tune of 400 yards rushing or whatever it was. I think Bijan had close to 300 yards. And that was their Achilles heel last year. You know, they did a good job early on in the season defensively, rotating and keeping guys fresh. And I think teams caught up to that and started playing a lot faster against them. And it really ate them up. Their defense was really, really bad last year. And they are playing considerably better. They gave up 200 yards rushing per game last year. They're at 90. You know, it's still a small sample. And it's, again, mostly non-conference. But still, it's significant that they've been able to do this defensively. I obviously no Bijan, no Roshan, but still a good, robust running game. So I think that's a key here is if Kansas can limit them a little bit, then I think this could be a good football game. But if Kansas's defense is able to limit Texas, Kansas can score, and that's obviously where their bread is buttered. But it's just going to be tough for them to keep up because Texas is so good on offense and defense, and Texas's defense will get some stops. Can Kansas's, that's the big key in this game, but. I definitely like Kansas plus 17. I feel like 14, 13 is probably a better number.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. I mean, this is a big game, and I love what Lance Leipold, the approach he's taken here. And that is, he was asked by the media in Lawrence in Kansas City about the game in 2021, and he was like, I hope this is the last time I'm asked about it. And he even used last year's game as motivation for this year's team. So, look, these two programs are in considerably different places than when they met in 2021. Obviously, Texas is significantly better, and Kansas, when they won that game, it was such a novelty. And so I think that's why Lance Leipold doesn't like it. It sort of notates a time when winning games was so unlikely for Kansas, whereas now it's a program that's used to winning football games. And so we'll see, if they can put their best foot forward here against Texas.
4-0 wins over, not the best competition, but pretty darn good. BYU, Illinois, Nevada, all wins so far. And again, the number, it's similar that, we cover Sark and the Longhorns on a daily basis here, Ari, and he's just done such a great job of acquiring talent and then developing the talent and then hitting the portal where they needed to. And, same thing for Lance Leipold, though. When you read up and follow that program, You know, he's added good players, but then they've developed the players that they have, and his systems, much like Sark's, very difficult to get your hands around. The number that jumps off the page for me for Kansas, and I mentioned it in the top of the hour headlines, they're over 60% on third down, Ari, conversion. I mean, 6 of 10 times they move the chains, which that makes it very frustrating on a defense if you can't get them off the field. And it starts and ends with their quarterback, Jalen Daniels. He might be the best QB in this conference.
And look, I mean, the reason they're so good at converting on third down, is because they're so good at running the football with their schemes. And, I mean, this was the same last year, too. They were really good on third down last year as well because they're in third and short situations pretty consistently. And, you know, they do that because they're three-headed monster rushing attack with Daniel Highshaw and Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels. You know, Neal is a legit four-star recruit that is out of Lawrence that, you know, wanted to build this thing, and he's been instrumental in doing it. I mean, he's a legit back, but the way that Andy Kotelnicki, their offensive coordinator, you know, the way he schemes, the pre-snap motion, the window dressing. I mean, Sark does a ton of it too. So I think that from a schematic standpoint will be really interesting to watch. And to your point about the talent, you know, look, I give credit to Les Miles too, because Les Miles, you know, Kansas's football program is so far behind at scholarships. When they had scholarship limits, they couldn't catch up. And so what Les Miles did in 2 consecutive recruiting periods was not take any transfers and just completely replenish with freshmen. And, you know, look, Lance Leipold is the beneficiary of some talent here. Jalen Daniels was brought in by Les Miles. But it was the perfect timing. It was the right group at the right time for the right coach. And he instilled, you know, some accountability and certain things within this program that had not been there that these players were waiting for. And it's obviously worked. And then from a defensive perspective, they've used the portal, you know, to really buoy where they missed, because again, that defense was really bad last year. And you know, they've improved the talent pretty dramatically in one off season.
They have. I mean, Texas is third in the Big 12 in rush defense at allowing just 87 yards a game. Kansas fourth at 93. I mean, this will be a tough game. I mean, both teams are dramatically improved. Texas probably more talented. What's your thought on Texas? Obviously covering them on the daily at Sirius XM College, Big 12 radio. I mean, this looks like Texas looks the part, I guess is what I would say, as far as a team that can win this conference and put themselves in the conversation for bigger things. What's your read on the Longhorns through 4 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas is in a tier by itself right now in the Big 12. I mean, Oklahoma is, you know, statistically up there, but they just haven't played the competition yet, I think, that would dictate that. I mean, Cincinnati's got major issues in terms of trying to throw the football. They can run, but they can't play from behind because they can't throw. So I'm just, you know, as the season evolves, I'm curious to see how Oklahoma continues to play. I've been impressed with them defensively, but Texas just looks different. You know, I mean, you and I were covering this team at the beginning of the end, you know, after the McCoy injury and the BCS national championship game. And I mean, none of those teams we covered looked anything like this on the field, obviously. And, you know, the biggest question mark I had about Texas coming into the season was Sark and the ability to close games. You know, we'd seen 2 years of teams just not be able to close games. And, you know, in the Alabama game, when Jalen Milroe hit that long touchdown pass that put Alabama up, and you kind of felt like, man, Texas has kind of dominated this game, but they were settling for field goals, and it doesn't reflect on the scoreboard. You're kind of like, oh, here we go again. And what do? They go right down the field and get a long touchdown themselves. So the Wyoming game is a good example of this too. Like the biggest issue and concern that I had, and a lot of people had coming into the season with Texas, I think was, you know, sort of quelled in those 2 games back to back, the way that they closed out Alabama, the way they closed Wyoming. And so, you know, for me, that was the only question mark I had. The talent was obvious, you know, and not just talent, but substantial talent up front on both lines of scrimmage. Jalen Ford's the best player and the best defensive player in the Big 12 and one of the best in college football. So, yeah, to me, it was just about, can they close games? It's been an issue for 2 years now with Sark, and, you know, he's never won 9 games in a regular season, had to have a bowl win to get to 9. So, you know, he's been impressive. They've been impressive. And, yeah, it's hard not to view Texas through the prism of a CFP team right now.
It looks like it, especially if they can get through this 2-game stretch where they're playing the only other 2 ranked teams in the Big 12 back-to-back. Kansas at 24 and 4-0. Oklahoma, of course, 4-0, and they'll likely be 5-0 at the Red River game next week. They play Iowa State, who's having a hard time right now. And Oklahoma is improved. And that'll be a conversation maybe we can have next week, Ari, because we'll now know if we're going to get an undefeated battle in the final Big Red River game between the two rivals as Big 12 teams, because Oklahoma looks the part, but man, they just aren't playing anybody yet. I mean, their defense is dramatically improved from year over year with Brett Venables. Dylan Gabriel's playing good. The numbers all jump off the stat sheet. Same time, who's the competition, right? I don't know if they have a win as quality as Texas has a couple so far this year.
No, I agree. I'd say Texas probably has 2 wins that are better than any of Oklahoma's wins so far. And look, Iowa State played significantly better last week against Oklahoma State with redshirt freshman quarterback and Rocco Becht. But they'll test Oklahoma defensively. Iowa State is still elite defensively, and if they can string together some scoring drives, and that's been their issue. But it's an inexperienced young team. They can make that a game this weekend. And then I think the other one in the Big 12 that's kind of big is TCU and West Virginia.
Sure.
The Big 12 looks really down right now, and I wonder if part of that is because of the preseason expectations for certain teams. Like Texas Tech looks really bad. Oklahoma State looks really bad. Those are 2 teams that I think, especially Texas Tech, people pick to win this conference or be competing for it. And so you wonder, okay, well, Kansas is a team now it's 4-0, and I mean, even if they don't beat Texas, this is still a team that looks primed to get to 6, 7, 8 wins, be a bowl team and compete towards the top of this conference. I mean, West Virginia, they're off to a 3-1 start. They get a win here, they're 4-1. That's a huge surprise. So, I wonder if the Big 12 is just quote unquote bad because of some of the preseason expectations we had for certain teams. But that TCU West Virginia game is another big one this weekend because I think both those teams are kind of fighting for the top half of the conference right now.
Yeah, wouldn't have picked that with Neil Brown, but they lost to Penn State, but they've won the rest of their games, including last week over Tech. All right, thanks a lot. Tell the family hi, and we appreciate it. Maybe we'll see you up in Dallas next week. No matter how this game goes this week. Best of luck to Kansas. Why are you going to New York, by the way? You mentioned you won't be in town.
Yeah, going for work, unfortunately. I was all excited when I booked it before the season started to see the Jets and the Chiefs, thinking that's going to be a big-time game. And I guess now I'll just have to settle for seeing the Chiefs blow out another team with Taylor Swift in the house. So That was fun last week. By the way, I said watching the Bears-Chiefs last week, they were down 24-0 the Bears with 1:55 left in the second quarter, and I said, just take a knee. Just take a knee.
Take a knee. Ari's Bears
they
fan.
went into half down 30. They went down in half down 34-0. They should have just taken the knee.
Yeah, right before half. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. You've seen that team too often, being growing up in Chicago. You've seen enough Bears football. And, yeah, you'll be in the building, huh? Taylor Swift, man, that's going to be brushed with greatness for you. That's pretty awesome. Looks like Taylor Swift will be at that Jets-Chiefs game on Sunday as well. All right, Ari, thanks, bud. Best of luck and safe travels. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, brother. Say hi to your family for me, and congrats to Rod again. Take care.
We'll pass them along. That's Ari Temkin, former colleague of ours, now up in Dallas doing Sirius XM radio, Big 12 radio, channel 375. You have the Sirius XM, also doing all kinds of things. Ari works about 6 different jobs, which is a good thing.